The Los Angeles homeless crisis, the worst in the U.S., worsens each day out here on these LA streets as thousands of homeless people line the concrete pavement all over the city. People dying on the streets from sickness and poor health, or from fentanyl, meth, and other drug overdoses, with drug-addicted homeless people like this woman out here, strung out on fentanyl, suffering mercilessly on this Skid Row street, where LA also has the worst homeless fentanyl crisis of any US city. It's devastating. You literally see homeless people dying out here every day. When you walk these streets, you really get an idea of what's going on out here. And just for the record, this is not even the Skid Row area where there are thousands of homeless people each and every day. This area here is several miles from downtown LA and Skid Row. This is the West LA area. It's the Sawtelle Sepulveda National Boulevard neighborhood. And yet, despite all the overwhelming evidence of this worsening homeless crisis all over the city, in July 2025, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass in her office announced some good news. Mayor Bass's office writes, "Lasting change. Annual homeless count down 2 years in a row for first time ever in Los Angeles." The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority released the results of the 2025 annual homeless count, showing for the first time a second consecutive year of decline in the number of people experiencing homelessness. The 2025 count reports a 17.5% decrease in street homelessness, according to Mayor Bass and her office. They go on to say, these results follow Mayor Bass's unprecedented efforts to implement a comprehensive strategy that confronts street homelessness. The status quo had been to leave people on the street until permanent housing was completed. We chose to act and reject the broken status quo of leaving people on the street until housing was built. They say these results aren't just data points, they represent thousands of human beings and neighborhoods that are beginning to heal. For some context, each year the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, or LAHSA, as it's known, that's what Mayor Bass is referring to. They do a point-in-time homeless count and survey taken over 3 days with now, as I just mentioned, city and county leaders saying there is a 17.5% decrease in homelessness here in LA. Is there, though? This is very curious, to say the least, especially given the fact Los Angeles has the worst homeless crisis in the nation, with more homeless people here in LA than any other US city. So how can the Los Angeles homeless population be decreasing when nationwide homelessness has increased nearly 20%? We're about to find out if the new 2025 homeless numbers are accurate. Are they misleading? Are they dishonest? Are they a fabrication? You decide after this investigative report.
Yeah, so the way the count works, there's two portions of it. There's a sheltered count, which is supposed to be an exact count of people in shelter reported by the shelter operators. And then there's the unsheltered count, which tends to get more attention, and that's the people living on the streets without fixed shelter. And for the unsheltered count, there's thousands of volunteers that fan out across LA County to do that and observe people with their own eyes and tents and other makeshift shelter structures. And what goes on in the process of this count is a certain portion of those observations are excluded from the final count. Perhaps there's believed to be an error in what was being observed. And we found some unexplained throwing out of a lot of those numbers.
Nick Gerda is an award-winning investigative journalist. Nick is the watchdog correspondent for LAHSA, a Los Angeles independent nonprofit news source. Recently, Nick produced a series of investigative reports about the LA homeless crisis. He questions the LAHSA survey numbers.
What we do know is that there was an area where it was supposed to be documented what the reason was for excluding this data, and that was frequently left blank. We also know that the rate at which this data was being excluded or thrown out was much higher, specifically in the city of LA, starting in the 2024 count. And that was the year we started to see this drop in the numbers. It certainly raised some questions, and the lack of documentation of the reasons why this information was being excluded certainly leaves us without a paper trail to understand whether it was done legitimately or not. And I'll add as well, there's a much more detailed survey that's done, counts that are done throughout, multiple times a year by a pretty respected organization, RAND Corporation. And these are in hotspots of homelessness, Skid Row, Hollywood, and Venice. And what RAND recently came out with is that their numbers they were finding in these neighborhoods tracked fairly closely with not LAHSA's numbers in 2022 and 2023 when there were increases being reported. But then in 2024, when LAHSA reported this decrease, that was the numbers LAHSA had for these neighborhoods that RAND counts was significantly below the counts that RAND had. And so RAND has raised concerns that there may have been a systemic undercount in 2024. That's something we're going to continue to ask questions about at LAHSA to seek answers about what's working, what's not working in our homeless services system.
The can has been kicked down the road for years. Billions of dollars have been spent and never got to the street. You got 3 people dead in front of the Midnight Mission, 2 on the other side dead over there. And we got a new saying now down on Skid Row. Tell a lie for a vote. I'll tell you anything to get your vote.
Dewey Terry is disgusted with LA politicians. Terry has worked with the homeless population for decades on the streets, in shelters, missions, SROs, single-room occupancy. No one knows these streets like Terry. He insists that LA leaders are being dishonest about the LAHSA survey numbers.
This is how they do smudging the numbers. They'll take them for 35 days, 45 days. Money run out, voucher run out, back on the street. Where they're going to go? They're going to come back to me. Because we used to count. I count tents from 5 in the morning. Okay, so that means I'll go around at every street that's there and count every tent on there with the people in there for 4 years before the city stopped us from doing it. Okay, we even counted the children. The city stopped us from counting those children and those women out there.
Why?
Because they didn't want the people to know. See, you got to understand something. Cronyism is so embedded in the city and the county that there's so much money running through there. The city is only there for political 30-second commercials. I don't want those little kids to look at us and say that nobody cares, right? I still got people dying on the street right now. I still get women that's raped every night. And then you have an infection of fentanyl, and it looks like a zombie movie right next door to the police station. And the city knows this. The city got a Skid Row coordinator that comes down and is supposed to look and see how everything is going on, and that's neglect. You come in, it's a man living in a box, and then you come to find him, he's dead in the box because he done died from, I done seen all that. I done seen the woman that shoot over, they ate all the muscle off of her, and she wanted to come back down. I said, girl, you need to be, no. Have I seen LAHSA? No. Am I seeing LAHSA now? No. You have to get people and take people where they need to go for the safety of the person. When you took the oath to be mayor, or you took the oath to be governor, you said you would protect the safety of the people of Los Angeles, California. And they ain't doing none of that.
There's no part of me that believes those numbers. So I don't think there's anybody that truly drives around Los Angeles that believes those numbers.
Elizabeth Mitchell is Chief Legal Counsel for the LA Alliance for Human Rights, and she's a partner with Umhofer, Mitchell & King. Mitchell and the Alliance sued the city and county over their failure to comprehensively deal with the homeless crisis and for not honoring various settlement agreements to take the homeless off the streets. Elizabeth believes that LA leaders are so mired in the billions of dollars shelled out to the various agencies that the politicians are now part of the problem, part of the homeless industrial complex. Elizabeth says without a doubt the new LAHSA 2025 homeless count is inaccurate due to court records from a LAHSA whistleblower.
As part of this evidentiary hearing that I mentioned, that in 2025, we had the former chief data officer, Emily Von Henry, testify. She was subpoenaed, had to testify under oath, and she testified there is no foundation for the data that LAHSA is putting together and putting out. So Emily Von Henry I don't know her personally. She was a whistleblower. We found out about her from an article that was written by Nick Gerda of LAHSA. And she was responsible for gathering the data and putting out the numbers that we see in the pit count, in the mayor's Inside Safe program, and then also related to various reports relating to the settlement agreement that we're overseeing. And one of the allegations that she made was that she and her team were being instructed to fudge the numbers in a way to make Mayor Bass look good. And we called her into court, and she testified to that exact fact under oath, that there is no foundation, there is no, quote, source of truth to the data that's being produced by LAHSA in the pit count and Inside Safe, and that people were being pressured to make the mayor look good. So when I see these numbers that come out from the most recent pit count, I don't believe it. There's no, quote, source of truth to these numbers. And so, there's a whole bunch of people that have a lot of criticisms about the way these point in time counts are done, right? You have insufficient volunteers, they skip entire areas, they kind of have these equations. In this particular case, in 2025, they were delaying releasing the numbers for several months. I think some of the numbers got shifted from the raw data that was reported. So there's a lot of these indicias. I don't want to say a fraud, but that's how we would say it, right? We would say indicias of fraud when things don't seem to be adding up. In addition, we have a witness that testifies under oath, the former chief information officer says there's no source of truth to these numbers. And the city had every opportunity to call any witness it wanted to counter these statements, and it never did.
Mayor Bass and LAHSA released all these new numbers on homelessness decreasing. I think they said 17.5% over 2 years. I can't believe that anyone that spent any time in the homeless space or down on Skid Row or in Venice or anywhere actually believes that homelessness is down nearly 20% in Los Angeles. It's just not true.
Tom Wolfe is a nationally renowned recovery advocate. Tom is the founder of Pacific Alliance, an organization that fights for better drug policy. And Tom is also the co-chair of the Homeless Committee for the Bay Area Council. Tom says the new LAHSA homeless survey numbers are, in his words, a joke.
In Los Angeles last year, over 2,200 people died on the streets. Was that counted in their homeless decrease? And we already know that for every one person that gets off the street, 4 new people enter into homelessness. And in fact, it's the homeless and housing providers that use that specific data point to justify more funding for their programs. So I would like to see actual details other than self-reported data or other than someone driving around on the back of a pickup truck at 2 o'clock in the morning, counting people on their hands of how many homeless people that they see, instead of actually getting out there in the community, going from tent to tent to tent to see how many families and children and people that have overdosed, et cetera, that are out there right now. So when you start breaking down the data about why you're homeless, how did you become homeless? Are you struggling with a substance use disorder? Are you struggling with alcoholism? Are you struggling with mental health? Those are all questions that are posed to an individual experiencing homelessness, and they take their answer, however they give it, and use it to report data that's then offered up as gospel by our politicians to say, hey, we're doing a great job reducing this. So we're not asking the right questions. It skews the data. Most of the data is self-reported. So I really wouldn't put too much weight in the point in time count. Certainly not as much weight that Mayor Bass has put into it, and the victory lap, frankly, that she took a couple of months ago when you see this documentary. Frankly, craven for her to do that because the numbers are not good. If anything, homelessness has increased, not decreased.
I mean, no other city in the United States has a skid row like LA does. There's nothing that comes close to the disaster. It's the greatest disaster. It's the greatest man-made disaster in the U.S. is LA's Skid Row.
Reverend Andy Bales was a past commissioner of LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, so he knows all too well what goes on at LAHSA. Reverend Bales was also president and CEO of LA's iconic Union Rescue Mission. His hero status changed over the years here in LA as he began speaking out and going public about the neglect and mismanagement on the part of city and county leaders where homelessness was concerned. Reverend Bale says the new LAHSA homeless survey numbers are falsified.
There's no question that Los Angeles is the capital of homelessness, that Skid Row is the epicenter of homelessness in the United States. And for anyone to think that getting the numbers down as a victory, it is not a victory. You're saying that this count is accurate, but this count has never been accurate. It's never been meant to be a count. It's always been a guesstimate. You haven't done any of the things that you would have needed to do to solve homelessness. And in fact, homelessness has not decreased in any way. And as you see from the public's reaction and the people that really care, their reaction is, no, you didn't. You didn't lower the numbers. There's still too many people struggling on the streets. LA is still the capital of homelessness in the US. And I would always say the barometer is the deaths per night. The deaths per night have not decreased. If you haven't lowered the deaths per night of people dying from homelessness, complications of homelessness, then you haven't lowered the numbers.
You don't believe the numbers, the LAHSA survey?
No, I will believe the numbers when I see 0 deaths per night from complications of homelessness. Then I think the translation will be that we have indeed begun to solve homelessness in LA. There was nothing we could source to prove the count was accurate.
I contacted LA Mayor Karen Bass's office over email, so the mayor could be a vital part of these news reports, so her voice could be heard loudly and clearly. Here is that email I sent to Mayor Bass in her office. Take a read with me. I'm continuing my homeless series, hoping to get an interview with Mayor Bass about the new LAHSA numbers and Insight Safe program. A positive interview, no other guests. A one-on-one half hour. We can talk over the phone, whatever is most convenient for the mayor in your office. Interview in person at any location or over Zoom. Unfortunately, once again, I never heard back from Mayor Bass or her office. Some 3 years of emails, 3 years of phone messages, despite desperately trying to talk to Mayor Bass about homelessness, and 3 years later, still nothing, no reply from the mayor or her team. So I emailed California Governor Gavin Newsom and his office. I wrote an email to them. Here is that email in part, which says I'm producing a report, my investigation into the homeless crisis here in LA and throughout the state, and the fentanyl epidemic overtaking the streets, particularly on Skid Row in LA, and why homelessness is worsening according to the experts, and what more can be done to help fix this situation. Let me know if we can interview the governor in person or Zoom if more convenient. I should say Governor Newsom's office was kind enough to email me back, which I greatly appreciated, saying in part, thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, they write, we're not tracking any availability for these interviews. Should anything change, however, we'll let you know. Simply trying to have a conversation with the governor and Mayor Bass. No mudslinging, no gotcha journalism, just a one-on-one interview to try and find solutions to the worst homeless humanitarian crisis in the nation. So certainly I'm disappointed that LA Mayor Karen Bass and California Governor Gavin Newsom are not part of this special report. I hope to hear from them one day. I am appreciative of the fact that LA City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson agreed to be interviewed. Recently, I had a wide-ranging interview with him about several LA issues, homelessness being one of them. Here is what Marquise Harris Dawson had to say from that interview. His answers are unedited.
Well, I think a couple things about that report I'll say just to give you the context. One of the most disturbing things about the report for the city of Los Angeles was homelessness had decreased everywhere except for Skid Row. So if you're using Skid Row as a measure, you're right. There hasn't been much movement. In our neighborhoods and the places where we frankly weren't accustomed to seeing homelessness, you're seeing it go away more quickly there. So I think you're right about that unevenness. I do think with as many problems as LAHSA has had, LAHSA's study is peer reviewed, first by USC, then by the RAND Corporation, as it has been every time. And this is the challenge I put to people who question the numbers. Who questioned the numbers when they were going up? And to me, if the methodology is wrong now, why wasn't it wrong when the numbers were increasing? Because, for my first 8
years on the council, the number went, except for 1 year during COVID when we didn't count, the number went up every year. I never heard a single person question the methodology then.
Well, I think the methodology,
and it was being done by LAHSA.
and I do give credit to Mayor Bass and to your council and county folks. They're trying desperately with the Inside Safe program and other programs, and no question, you folks are taking homeless off the streets. But the problem is, and I keep saying this in my stories, as soon as, let's say, 10 people are taken off the streets, 12 are back on the streets 2 or 3 weeks later, and that is no joke. In the West LA area, there's a part of the 405 freeway and an encampment on the Sepulveda Sawtelle National, and
On Cotner.
that's
I
right.
know it well.
That's right.
Yeah, it'll be gone soon.
However, even when they're gone, they're just the homeless folks relocate just a few blocks away, and they're still there.
Well, this
And that's,
is
I think, the problem.
Yeah, this is the thing about Inside Safe. I mean, you're right. We for years have had cleanup programs, Care Plus and other ones, which just move. Basically, we tell people move so we can clean the sidewalk, go where you're going to go. And we all know full well these people have got no place to go, so they're going to be back either here or someplace very, very similar. The great thing about Inside Safe, as expensive as it is, and it's a very expensive program, it does it. If there are 12 people on the street, they house 11 of them. And the one that refuses, may turn up somewhere else, but they house 11 of them on the spot. And there are areas where, at least in my district, where I've done Care Plus, what you're describing happens. We have 8 people, then 3 months later it's 10 people.
Yeah.
Where we've done Inside Safe, we may have 12 people and 1 person may come back. And then that 1 person, it's much easier to deal with that 1 person than it is to deal with a full-on encampment. And so we can see that it's working. And that's why, to me, the numbers are not a surprise, because I see when we're putting people into the motels and into temporary housing.
The other concern about the numbers, and I'll leave you with this, and then we'll get to our next issue. I've been told that about 6 homeless people are dying on the street every day, largely in the Skid Row area. This is true. You were mentioning Skid Row a moment ago. Whether fentanyl overdose, meth overdose,
Yep.
drug overdose, health conditions. So just by default, if 6 people are dying a day, well, there goes the loss account, because the diminishment in the number of people are maybe from folks who are dying.
Well, I think we do lose people, and those people obviously don't count if they're not with us anymore. But just remember this, again, from 2015 to 2023, we also had 6 people dying, except the number of homelessness would go up, which means that we were producing new homeless people to replace the ones who were housed and replace the ones who passed away. It is a big victory for all of us that we don't replace the ones who've passed away with new homeless people, and we don't replace the people who've been housed with new homeless people. I mean, that's the homelessness problem. People like to talk about it in isolation, but it's connected to the housing problem, right? Everybody starts off homeless having been housed somewhere, somehow, and then they're not. The most common reason is economic. The most likely demographic for new homelessness, and this is what's scary, is people over the age of 66.
That is scary.
That's scary, and what you find when you talk to people is somehow they lost their apartment, their rent
Right.
control apartment, and then on the new rental market, they have no shot. They have
There's
no
no
chance.
question.
There's no
There's no
way.
question.
There's no way. And so they end up in their car, and then they stay with friends, and then they develop a drug habit, and then they present on the street as someone who's addicted to
Right.
whatever with a mental health condition that takes a lot of work to deal with.
I recently interviewed former Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who you certainly know well. He believes in more of a sort of tough criminalization, and obviously you know that. But is there something to be said, possibly, I mean, but with a kinder, gentler touch, so to speak, but something has got to be done.
Absolutely, that's the case. I mean, look, the thing about homelessness is it happens to people.
Yeah.
So, and as you know, people are very, very different. And so there's some things that'll work great for this set of people that won't work at all for the next set of people, that won't work at all for the next set of people. So we need all of it. And, one of the things I get upset about is a lot of the pro-criminalization people, the way they paid for no prisons was by defunding what were called halfway houses. And halfway houses did exactly what you're describing. You go here, there are rules. Sometimes they were religious. Sometimes they were based on 12-step. But you're on a program and there's strict discipline because there's an awful lot of us that respond well to that. Well, we defunded all of those. And so now what we do is we put you in a shelter, give you a cot, and say, don't screw up.
Right.
And for a lot of people, as you know, that's just not going to work.
Certainly.
That's going to fail more times than it's going to be successful. And so I think we need all of it. We need, we need things for people who are active in drug use. We need people. I mean, it's one of the most tragic things that we see. And as wealthy as we are, people come up to us and to our workers and say, I've been on drugs, I've been on the run, I'm ready to get clean. And we tell them, we'll get back to you in 3 or 4 days with a bed.
Yeah. There's got to be a better answer.
There's got to be a better answer
way,
than that.
no question.
Drugs are not new. Drugs are not limited to race. They're not limited to class. They're not limited to political ideology. Addiction is a disease that we just refuse to treat.
The council president is trying to find that better answer. LA Mayor Karen Bass is also trying to find that better answer as well. And Council President Harris Dawson is correct. Drug addiction is a disease that's not properly being treated. Neither is mental illness here in the US, which is also greatly to blame for the homeless situation, the psychosis, the schizophrenia, all the myriad of other mental health elements that go untreated. We have a broken healthcare system. It's in disrepair, and that must be fixed somehow. Good luck with that. We have a housing problem, not enough housing. Rents are too high for too many. We have a domestic violence problem where young, victimized women are forced to take to these streets out here. They've got nowhere else to go often. We have a VA problem where our hero homeless vets, some of them, they sadly have to take to these streets as well. Sure, people must take personal responsibility. They must not allow themselves to be out here, however. Easier for some people than others. Unfortunately, that's just how this thing works. And we've got to all work together to find a solution and not politicize the homeless crisis. Everyone must collaborate